welcome to the Goffstown Public Library. I'm Caroline Kenny. I'm the head of Adult Services. Tonight's speaker is Linda Magoon. Linda is an environmentalist and outdoor enthusiast. She reconnected with her love of hiking after ending a difficult marriage and set out to climb all 48 of New Hampshire's 4,000-foot peaks at the young age of 55. Now Linda writes and empowers others on the mental and physical health benefits of the outdoors. She is a member of the Appalachian Mountain Club, New Hampshire Writers Project, and Toastmasters International. Here to speak about her book, Live Free and Hike, Finding Grace on the 48 Summits. Please welcome Linda Magoon.
Yay, thank you.
Welcome to Goffstown.
Thanks. I'm hiking alone on the Liberty Spring Trail in the White Mountains. At least I thought I was on the Liberty Spring Trail. As I'm walking along, the trail gradually narrows until it becomes nothing. And my hands are sweaty, my chest is pounding, and my mouth is dry. Sort of how I'm feeling now. My mother was right. I am going to die in the White Mountains. I'm lost. Now what do I do? Instead of panicking and running around in circles, which is very easy to do, a lesson from a survival course popped into my head, and it was the acronym STOP. And the S in STOP means to stay put. There's no sense in running around and getting more lost than I already am. I'm not quite exactly sure I am. I can't believe I'm not on the Liberty Spring Trail, but I'm not exactly out in the middle of nowhere either. The T in STOP is to take stock. What do I have for supplies? It's early in the day. It's June, so I'm not going to freeze to death. I have plenty of water. I have plenty of dry socks. I have plenty of Snicker bars. So I'm in good shape, at least for now. There's no sense in panicking and calling Fish and Game and being on their press release on their Facebook site. We don't want to do that just yet. The O is to observe. Do I hear anything in the distance like traffic or logging equipment or ATVs or anything that can get me back to the trail? After thinking about it for a few minutes, I noticed that, or I remembered that when I crossed a stream, there was a trail that ran along the stream, right? So if anybody who hikes knows that no hiker likes to get their feet wet. So they'll run up and down the stream bank, kind of making a little herd path in order to cross at the most driest place. So I thought, that might have been where I went off. Maybe I followed one of these herd paths. So the P is to make a plan. I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to try to retrace my steps back to the stream. I can hear it off in the distance, and with any luck, I'll find the trail. And sure enough, that's exactly what I did. I didn't end up on Fish and Game's press release about who they had to rescue. And eventually, I got to the top of Mount Liberty, a beautiful view. And anybody know, whoops, I can't get too close, huh? Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a little temperamental.
All right, I'll just stay right here. I won't move. And anybody know what that cliff is up there? What is that?
Cannon.
Cannon Cliffs, right. This Cannon Mountain. I don't dare point, but there it is. And does anybody know what this ridge here is? Oh, it just doesn't like me. Franconia Ridge, very good. There's some hikers in the audience. Perfect, perfect. And this is kind of why I hike, is because after traveling up and down the notch for work for years and years and years, it was finally an opportunity to see, from a vantage point that very few people get to see. This, from the top of the iconic Franconia Ridge. And it's just such a different perspective. There's something different about being above tree line that's magical. But guess what? You're only halfway there. You still have to get down, right? So even though this is all great and yay, I made it, you still have to get down, and that's where your knees start to feel it, and you get kind of sore, you get kind of cranky. But again, instead of resisting the urge to just run back to your car to get the hike over with, Again, you have to kind of stop and stay put and take stock and maybe drink some water and give yourself a break. So how did a 55-year-old get caught up in this kind of crazy challenge to hike all 48 4,000 footers? Well, my origin story began growing up in the tiny rural town in Massachusetts called West Millbury. I was the youngest of three folks, three siblings, and we lived out in the middle of nowhere. If you look hard, there's a rooftop behind me, and there was another house. There's only 2 houses on the entire street. So there wasn't a lot to do but play outside, right? And my dad loved to hunt, and he loved to fish and forage for mushrooms, and so I would follow him around in the woods. And my mom loved to clean. She loved a clean house. And so I quickly learned that the best place to be was outside, out of mom's sight. But she also had I also got my work ethic and my resilience and my inner strength from my mom. And we didn't have a lot of money growing up. We never went to summer camp. We were the original 2-parent working household. My mom worked nights at a bank doing banking operations. My dad worked during the day. So when I wanted a guitar, they said, well, we really can't afford it, so here, play this tennis racket and just pretend it's a guitar. But I kept asking for it, and eventually I got one for Christmas, and so I still play to this day. So I think that was a good investment on their part. And so that's how I got to love the outdoors. Fast forward, I majored in forestry at the University of Idaho, and after graduating, like most people who had forestry degrees, there was no work. I mean, there was nothing to be had. So one day I was walking down the street wondering how I was going to pay my student loans when I saw a police officer sitting in a car eating a donut, and I thought, I can do that. And so I did. I became a police officer out in Idaho. Came back to New Hampshire and took up residence in Concord, and was a police officer for a time. And while in New Hampshire, it was the first time I had ever heard of this big bad mountain called Mount Washington. Has anybody hiked it? A couple people have hiked it, right?
Rode the car.
Yeah, I rode the car. That counts too. It's the highest mountain out of the 48 4,000 footers, of course, but it's also known as one of the more deadlier mountains to hike in all of the country, not because of its elevation, it's fairly short, but because of the convergence of several weather patterns, and it's known for its worst weather in the world. And the highest wind gust was reported on Mount Washington. Does anybody know what it was?
231?
Yeah. Did you want to give the talk? I mean, looks like you're doing a better job than I am. Yeah, 231 miles an hour. And I think this spring, the wind speed routinely was over 100 miles an hour on top of Mount Washington. Very deadly mountain, and it was like something I wanted to do. I thought this would be the coolest thing in the world to hike Mount Washington. You keep hearing these stories about it. And so it was something it was kind of my dream of mine. It was 1999, and I thought this was a great way to usher in the millennium by hiking Mount Washington. My family didn't want to do it, so I managed to drag my brother and my nephew into going with me because I didn't want to go by myself. So I've got my trusty hiking stick and this old canvas backpack that I had, and we set off, this is in September, and we're in hiking shorts and short sleeves. And if you're familiar, September is kind of the edge of you're kind of running to the end of the summer hiking season, right? Because winter in Mount Washington is pretty much all year round, but the weather really gets worse in the fall. So we're kind of butting up against the edge of the summer hiking season where we're already fogged in and socked in, but we're determined to get up there. And finally, we're getting above tree line. I think this is the head wall to Tuckerman's Ravine. We've got our hat on and our mittens. And so what are you rewarded with at the top of Mount Washington? A gift shop and a hot dog stand and a bathroom with a flush toilet. So what could be better than that, right? But again, you still have to get down. There was absolutely no view. But once we get down where the clouds are opening up, but what is the best view of all? Anybody know? What's
Parking lot.
Exactly. You got it. I don't care how much you love to hike. There is no better view than the view of your car at the end of a long day. It's the most amazing thing. And pro tip: I don't head in anymore. I back my car in so I can I can get out that much faster. So I back my car in when I hit the trailhead. So even though this was a momentous occasion, and I'm glad I did it, it came at a very high cost. And that cost wasn't risking my life, hiking up the mountain in September in a shorts and t-shirt, or eating the hot dogs at the top of the at the top of the summit. What cost me this was telling my husband, because he was an insecure, jealous, angry person who thought that if I wanted to do something that he wasn't interested in, it meant I was selfish and only thinking of myself. So if I wanted something bad enough, it usually had consequences. That hiking stick and the backpack stayed up in my attic for 20 years. And I never hiked again, except for work. When I was in the Wetlands Bureau, I hiked a lot, and that was kind of like my hiking, that's how I got that out. But in terms of like mountain climbing, it was a price that I was not willing to pay. Many years later, after my daughter grew up, I finally reached a tipping point where I moved out and got a divorce and was on my own. And now I was kind of free to do whatever I wanted. So one day I was driving by this mountain called Mount Moosilauke. Has anybody heard of it? It's out in the western part of the state. It kind of sits off by itself. It's not really part of the White Mountains. It's a little standoffish. And Mount Moosilauke is just this magnificent peak if you're ever driving along Route 25 it's just beautiful. And one day I was like, it's August, it's a nice day, why don't I just grab that dusty, musty backpack and take it for a hike. And it was 8-mile round trip, which was a lot for me. But going up, I felt I was like in the Emerald Forest. I mean, this particular trail is part of the Appalachian Trail, and everything was just so beautiful, and the idea of being out in nature was just so healing to me. It was very therapeutic is the word I'm looking for. And what's even more therapeutic is when you break up above tree line and you're walking along this substantial path above the clouds and above the trees. You feel like you're in the Alps, even though it's only 4,000 feet. So eventually I reached the summit, and I still have that same hiking stick and the same backpack from 20 years earlier. And I thought, well, this is very cool. And what I did is when I went back home, I like to reread the hike in my 26th edition 1999 guidebook. And the purpose of that is just to kind of see if what I experienced matched what was in the guidebook. And in looking at the guidebook, I noticed that there was this, just thumbing through it, there was this list of 48 4,000 footers. I thought, well, this would be kind of fun. How hard can this be? I've already done 2. I did Mount Washington 20 years ago, because there's no statute of limitations, and I did Mount Moosilauke. So that's 2 down, 46 to go. So I set this goal to hike all of these 48 4,000 footers. Now, does he look familiar? That's Eric's goal. So there, of course, with any sort of challenge, there are rules, right? And one of the rules is that it's okay to do more than one mountain summit in one day. Like I said, there's no statute of limitations. No matter, you know, how old you were and how you did it, it counts. You have to hike on foot, so sadly the cog doesn't count. So there's no cog, no ATVs, no tram, no bombardier, and especially no bicycles. So as long as you can do it on foot, no matter the season, you're in. So I thought, this is great. This will, you know, I have the time to do this now, and I have a goal, and I got a map, and I put it up on the wall, and I started putting push pins into it. And the next mountains I decided to do were the Osceolas, and they are in the they're getting close to like the Waterville Valley area, up in that section of the state. And I thought, well, this is great. I can do 2 in one day. It doesn't look too bad. It's maybe, I would point, but I don't dare. If you look at the yellow line, I think it was like maybe 6 mile round trip. So I thought that was very doable. But this time it's November. It's getting a little chilly. I've got to see the same old canvas, old backpack, and the same old stick. So I go out there and I meet this feature called the chimney. Are you familiar with the chimney?
That was a really long time ago.
Okay. So what the chimney is, it's exactly like it sounds. It's a 30-foot rock feature that this picture doesn't do it justice because it's almost vertical. And you have to go down the chimney to reach the peak and then come back up the chimney. So going down wasn't that bad because I could just take my pack and my stick and I just chucked it at the bottom and just kind of scooted down and just leaped down. But going up was another story. And the problem is I had this hiking stick and I really had an emotional attachment to it because I had hiked Mount Washington with it. And I didn't want to just leave it or chuck it in the woods. So I wanted to bring it back with me. But I needed 2 hands to climb my way up the chimney, right? So what I did was I start up one rock, one handhold at a time, pushing my hiking stick up a few inches ahead of me, using both hands to gain purchase. 1 step up, push stick up, repeat. I reach for another rock, but my fingers hit only wood. My loyal hiking partner teeters, then topples over the ledge. Horrified, I take a swipe as it shoots by me like a dart and grab nothing but air. It sails past me like a torpedo until coming to a precarious rest halfway down the chimney. I'm disappointed, but not daunted, and thankful it hasn't careened to the bottom. No need to go back down. Sitting on a slice of rock, I extend my legs and pinch the stick up with my feet and then draw my feet towards me. With an outstretched arm, I reach for the stick, but it causes my boot to shift. Wood strikes rock and my stick cartwheels downward, end over end in slow motion until coming to the rest at the bottom of the chimney. 15 years earlier, I climbed Mount Washington with this stick. In preparation for the hike, I found the striped maple, young and straight, to use as a stick. I cut it down, removed the bark, and waterproofed it with varnish. After applying several coats, I drilled a hole near the top and threaded a rawhide bootlace through it to use as a lanyard. So what to do? Do I go all the way down, back down to the chimney to get my stick, or do I just leave it for somebody else to find? I was a little concerned that if I left it, somebody would come across it and think that there was somebody missing or it had disappeared off into the woods. So I thought I should go get it because I just didn't want to leave it and I was too attached. So as I started working my way down, and by this time it's getting dark, thankfully another person was coming the other way And she said, hey, can I get that stick for you? And I was like, well, yes, please and thank you. I really like that. And so she shot it up like a javelin, and I scrambled up after it and then ran back to my car as fast as I could. But that was kind of a wake-up call for me, because if I had read that guidebook very carefully, I would have read that there is a way you can just walk around the chimney, so you don't have to navigate that. So maybe that's what you did. You were smart enough to read the guidebook, because I don't know if I'll ever do that again. That was kind of rough. But I had 2 more in my belt, and what I also learned is I really needed to smarten up in terms of what I needed to carry. I was kind of fumbling and bumbling my way through these 48 4,000 footers, and I learned about, carrying the 10 essentials. Like I already had the warm socks, but like a map and a compass and a first aid kit, extra food, extra water, gloves, a hat. So I started educating myself, taking all of these things, but then I realized that there are other essentials for hiking. And some of my other essentials are Advil for my bad knees. I learned to take those at the top, so when I was coming down, it was already in effect. I gave up my hiking stick and got a pair of trekking poles instead, because they're so much better for your knees. Knee braces are always a good thing. Bandana, it's great if you dip it into a stream and put it on your sore knees. A belt was especially handy, because I'd just lose so much weight by the end of a trek, and some lip balm. So out of all of those things, what do you think is the most important? What would be the most vital thing you'd carry?
Water.
Water? Yeah. What else?
Lip balm.
Lip balm. 6-pack. There's a GPS unit there. I don't dare point, but there's a toilet paper tube and with some lint in it. What do you think that's for?
Starting a fire.
Yeah, fire starter. Yep. Cotton balls and Vaseline also work too. So out of all, and there's also I think there's like a flint and a lighter. Headlamp is totally important, even if you plan going out for the day. But really, the most essential thing, and I hesitated to do this, was to tell people where you're going to go and what time you'll be back. That's really the most essential thing, is to let somebody know where you're going. And I had a difficult time with that, because I thought I'd be judged, like, yeah, you're kind of like in your late 50s. What do you want to do that for? So I was kind of hesitant about letting people know. I got better at it as time went on, but that was kind of a rough one for me. Eventually, I got what's called a hike safe card, and what that is, it's kind of like a get out of jail free card that Fish and Game sells. If they have to rescue you, you won't bear the cost of their rescue. It's $25, and it helps supports their mission. So it's kind of a cheap insurance. If you have a fishing license or a hunting license or something like that, then you're covered. But it's a good way to support their rescue efforts, because if you've heard on the news, it takes a tremendous amount of effort to rescue one person. All right.
Is that good indefinitely, or do you have
It's good for the calendar year. So if you buy it now, you're good for the rest of the year. What do you think is the #1 cause for rescues? What is the #1?
slipping and falling?
Slipping and falling? Anybody else?
Unprepared.
You're prepared.
Unprepared.
Yep. Yeah, the #1 cause for rescues is falling. That's the #1 injury, is falling. Because everyone, you can go out there, you have your microspikes and your crampons and your ice axe and all this other stuff, but all it takes is one fall, and you break an ankle or sprain something and you can't walk, and then then you've got a challenge. So gradually I learned to do all of this stuff. But it was about this time, it had been about, 6 months after my divorce, and I was wrapping up Christmas presents and putting Christmas presents away, and I came across this article in a newspaper, and the article was very short. It was a very short press release, and it said, Looking for help in identifying and in achieving personal goals? Sign up for a 5-week workshop led by a certified life coach. Participants will define what they desire, identify roadblocks, learn valuable strategies to become more balanced and productive, and shift the inner voice to one of support. It'll be fun and inspiring. Call or register online. And so these words were just jaw-dropping to me. Define what they desire. I had lived in a marriage for almost 25 years where I was walking on eggshells and had to pick and choose what I defined and what I desired. And here is this life coach by the name of Emily Clement telling me that I can have whatever I want. I mean, that was kind of mind-blowing to me, to be able to dream and it, you know, by magic, it's yours. It just seemed a little too woo-woo for me. But I signed up for it anyway. And so, you know, I didn't know what the difference was between a therapist and a life coach, but there's huge differences. And that is a therapist is somebody who's, well, they require a degree and a license and a lot of hours. But they really focus on your mental health and your emotional well-being. And they look at your backstory and they look at what your past trauma is and you know, try to help you through the past. So they kind of look in the past, and they're covered by insurance, which is important. Now, a life coach, there's no certification available. I guess anybody can call themselves a life coach. But what I liked about it is that they're focused on setting goals. They meet you where you're at, and they're focused on the future. Sadly, they're not covered by insurance. But I just found that the idea that somebody could help me define what I wanted, you know, especially at this point in my life when I was truly an empty nester, I thought, well, this is perfect for me. So on the first day of class, we had to write on a piece of paper what our goals were. And I wrote, hike the White Mountains, the 48 4,000 footers, and write about it to inspire others. I didn't know what else to write, quite frankly, but you know, I kept that little piece of paper with me. I still have it, and even though the writing's not that great, you know, eventually I did hike all the 4,000 footers. During this class, we learned to define our dreams in 4 areas, and one was health. What do we want for health? Relationships. How can we make our relationships better? What's our vision for that? Our career and our financial freedom. And then one of the things that are the limiting stumbling blocks is fear and failure. Those are the 2 things that kind of keep us holding us back from achieving what we desired. So I felt a need to keep hiking throughout the winter to show my class that I was serious. Now I had some measure of accountability, right? So I had to show my class that I was serious about hiking these 4,000 footers, and I chose this one. It's called Mount Eisenhower, and the summit is huge. It's bald. Fittingly, it's bald like the president, and I thought it would be an easy enough one to do in the winter. Again, I'd love to point, but I can't. So I'm going to just shout it out here. The trail I was going to take is the Edmonds Path. It's off to the left, that big red line. And then it goes up to the top, and then it meets up with this other path called the Crawford Path. And I hook a sharp right and hit the summit. And you can see there's a little triangle there that says Mount Eisenhower. So once you get to the top, there's plenty of places you can get turned around. But I had my map with me. I was pretty confident I knew where I was going. And as always, when you get to the trailhead, there's a little bit of snow, not bad, but it's very, very manageable. But by the time you get up to 4,000 feet, you hit this. I'm getting above tree line now. It's getting cold. I can't see. And so, one of the things I learned in this class was trying to tell the difference between fear and instinct. Because I kind of lived in fear for a very long time, and I still couldn't differentiate the two. And fear is that small voice that's telling you that you're not good enough, that you're not fast enough, or you're overweight, that very negative voice. While instinct is when your head, heart, and your gut are all in alignment. So when I reached this point, I thought, geez, should I keep going? And so I did. I decided, why not? I might as well give it a try. But as I got to the top, I found myself not gaining elevation, and my instinct told me that this was not the right path. I had taken the wrong path to the summit, and I was kind of wandering around, not really knowing where I was going. So I decided to once again stop and stay put and take stock and observe and plan. I ended up following my own footprints back in the snow to this area here. And I was a little nervous, a little scared, trying to differentiate between that fear and instinct. And I thought, should I try again, or should I just admit defeat and go back down? So what would you do? Admit defeat and go back down, or try again?
What time is
I
it?
wouldn't admit.
What time is it? That's a good question. What time is it? The time is noontime, so it's very early.
But it's not defeat, it's just,
Right. Right.
which is the right thing. for
Yep.
action.
I mean, I think the answer is there's no right answer. It depends on how you feel in your situation. And so what I did is I tried again. I ended up, I thought, what? I've got hand warmers and plenty of extra clothes. I know how to get back down. I just don't know how to find the summit. So I tried again, and it helped that by this time there was a crush of other people coming up the mountain too, so I just kind of followed them up to the summit. And then I was rewarded with this beautiful summit view right there. And that's where a lot of these 4,000 footers are. It's just a big pile of rocks. But I did end up re-hiking that a few years later, and it's just magnificent. It's for a 4,000 footer, it's one of the, they're all hard, but it's one of the less harder ones. So that was kind of a life lesson between trying to differentiate between fear and instinct. I think it's the 5th highest mountain, is Mount Madison. And this is one where I failed very badly. And I don't want to give it all away, but I decided to hike this on Super Bowl Sunday. So that would be what, in February? And the weather is actually for February it was fairly warm. It was about 40 degrees, but it was very foggy. And it was very difficult to see, and as you're climbing higher and higher, it's getting icier. So at this point, there's a hut called the Madison Hut, and there's one person walking down, and we stop and compare notes, and I say, is it safe to go up there? And she says, yes, you can do it. And by the way, you'll be the only one up there. There's nobody else up there but you. I thought, okay. So I start hiking, but once you're above tree line, there's no signposts, right? There's just a big pile of rocks that kind of light the way. And I can't see from one pile of rocks to the next. And the whole hike has been off. I'm wearing the wrong boots. My backpack is not loaded, and it keeps shifting. My pants are falling down. It just nothing feels right. But I'm still determined to hike up this summit. So I continue to climb, but stop when I can't see the next cairn. I look down slope on the cairn I left a few minutes earlier. 1 second it's visible, and the next it too disappears. I stand still, paralyzed as to what I should do. Should I continue on in the clouds and fog, or turn back? I am truly alone here should I get into trouble. As I weigh my options, a particularly strong gust of wind pushes me into a perfect sitting position on the only flat rock I can see for a few yards. I take the hint. I'm not tired, but I'm lonely, uncomfortable, and a little scared. My heels burn, I can't keep my pack on, and I can't keep my pants up. I can't see the summit of Mount Madison Hut, or even the next marker in front of me. Something as simple as a twisted ankle could have serious, even deadly consequences. I recall one of the safety rules of the Hiker Responsibility Code, to turn back in unexpected conditions and weather. The mountain will always be there. So this is the first mountain that I hiked where I was forced to turn back. And the lesson here is that there is no failure, there's only feedback. I heard Laura Kanoy give a talk on Saturday about failure and rejection. And what she said is that those types of things, rejection like in the writing business, that those types of things are not really failure, they're just guideposts. Maybe you're on the wrong path and you know, need to try another way. So that's something that I learned. I felt bad that I turned around, but at the same time it was a smart thing to do, because up at that elevation it's nothing but rocks, and all those rocks are just covered with ice and snow, and there was just nothing fun about it. So by this time, it took me, by this time I'm like 3 years in. I've been hiking and still sticking to this goal that I have. And by this time, people at work are starting to learn about what I'm doing, and so they've offered to hike with me on some of the longer hikes, and I was like, sure, I'll do that. And this is a coworker that we're hiking to the top of Mount Madison. I just like this picture because it looks like he's hiking over a glacier, and that was taken in April. So that was that's Jeff Andrews. Yeah, Jeff Andrews. Yep. He's a fantastic hiking companion to hike with. So this is some other hiking companions. The person, the sun is too bright, but I don't know if you can see him. The person on the far left is my nephew. He was the little boy we saw on Mount Washington earlier, all grown up now. This is Mount Willard. This is one of the 52 with a view. And this is another way you can get down the mountain.
Yeah.
And that's how you come down the hill.
Yeah, that's it. Still got the same crappy canvas pack on, but that was a lot of fun butt sliding. I did most of these mountains alone, but what would inevitably happen is that I would run into another hiker who was always hiking alone, and we would hike together. So I went hiking with this guy by the name of Ryan, and he told me about butt sliding, and he introduced me to that fun world. As usual, I saved the very hardest ones until the end, and these are the bonds out in the middle of the Pemigewasset Wilderness. I recruited my niece and nephew to help me finish these because it was an overnight, and I had done long day trips. But with the bonds, I had did Zealand, Bond Cliff, and West Bond all in one hike with an overnight. And so this is us at the top of the bonds. This is my niece. It's a tad breezy. June. So he's telling me to wave at the camera because I think he wanted me to be blown off the side of the mountain. And I asked him if he needed any bug spray. It took about 4 years, August of 2015 to June of 2019. But there we are. Finally, we're on the peak. I couldn't have done it without them because they're backpacking aficionados, and I had never backpacked or slept on the ground before. And I have not since. So some of the lessons that I learned, it was so important to have a goal because I was going through a difficult time in my life. Stop to go, that survival technique worked whether you're in the woods or whether you're having a bad day at the office. If you just stop and take stock and observe and just plan and breathe, it can make things a little bit easier. Healthy people ask for help. I had a good life coach, and nature heals. And so just being out in nature, you don't have to do a 4,000 footer. You can, take a walk, into the park. It just reduces your anxiety. You're able to focus, get a good night's sleep, and any sort of hike or walk, especially if it's outside, no matter what time of year, it's just so beneficial. At least it was for me. So after you get done, you send in your list to the Appalachian Mountain 4,000 Footer Club. And if they they like your application, you get rewarded with a patch that's the size of a postage stamp and a certificate suitable for framing. And there it is, that's my certificate. I finished in June of 2019, and I was set to go to the awards ceremony. They had it in April of 2020, and guess what happened? There was no awards ceremony for Linda. But that's fine. I got it in the mail, and so it is framed. And that is the end of my trail talk. Feel free to visit my website. I have a little newsletter sign up. You can shoot me an email at lindamagoonauthour@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook at Linda Cooling Magoon Author. Thanks for your attention. I would be happy to answer any questions.
First,
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. Appreciate that.
Linda, you mentioned you grew up in the small town Millsville?
Millbury, yeah, Millbury, Massachusetts.
Western Mass. Whereabouts?
Yeah, so
I grew up in Western Mass.
yeah, so it was in West Millbury. It still is, and my dad built that house, and my brother is still living in it. And it's in southern Worcester County. So it's not in western Massachusetts per se, it's in central Massachusetts, but it's sort of like, it's south. I would say we're like maybe an hour from the Connecticut border. So just southern, like on the Auburn line, yep. I still have many friends and roots back there too. But even though I've been living in New Hampshire for like 35 years, that almost makes me a native, I think. So, all right. Anything?
What happened to your walking stick?
What happened to the walking stick? Thank you for asking. The walking stick went hiking with me one day up in Stark on a place called Devil's Ledge. So what does that tell you? And Devil's Ledge was covered with pine trees and pine needles. And I decided I was going to do some bushwhacking. I was inspired by this book I was reading about bushwhacking, which is not really following an established trail. And I got to the edge of this Devil's Ledge, and all I could see were the tops of trees. And I knew that wasn't good, and I didn't dare go to the edge of the ledge. So I started working my way back, and once again I ran into this problem of I needed two hands to claw my way back up. And this carpet of needles was so slippery that I was like on all fours, just trying not to slide. So I took my stick and did the same old javelin chuck up the hill, and the thing just slid right past me, right off the ledge, and I just said my goodbyes, and it went back to nature, you know, it went full circle, and I did not try to find it. I haven't tried to find it. It's very sad, but you know, it's okay too. It's okay. I still have that canvas backpack. That's what matters. So, all right. Anything else? Well, thank you so much for your attention. I'll be happy to sign any books if you'd like to purchase one, or if you want to just hang back and just chat. I'm all about that too. Thanks to the Goffstown Public Library and to Dan of Public Access TV. Thanks, Dan and Caroline, for having me. So have a terrific night. Take care, folks. All right. Thank you.